This is Alan Baker and Bob Berge. We are the Association Director and the Technical Director of Erik Paulson's Combat Submission Wrestling Association. Welcome to the CSW Podcast.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. It's another CSW Podcast. We're recording this on Tuesday, November 15th, 2016. Me and my good friend, Alan Baker. What's happening,
Hey, guys.
Alan? What's going on, buddy?
It's going to be a busy week this week. I think you and I and Miss Tanya Paulson and Coach Erik are going to be seeing each other in a few days.
CDP, Atlanta First East Coast Coach Development Program.
Yep. And actually, in addition to the affiliate program, they've been doing 2 a year. And if you're unfamiliar with the program, once you get in, you get access to coach camps pretty much for free. That's part of the program. We're adding one more. That's the one coming up this weekend, and we'll be doing 3 like that in the program moving forward.
Now, when you say
we haven't really discussed the program that much.
Let me jump in real quick and stop you for 1 second. When you say 3, is that 3 in the U.S. and then also overseas?
Yeah, we do 3 in the U.S. That's going to be 2 at the main training center and 1 in Atlanta. And I know that they try to arrange an additional 1 in the U.K., at least 1 per year.
Okay. And I heard rumblings about 1 in Australia. Is that materialized?
I have heard that too. I don't think there's anything set yet, but it is in discussion.
Okay, perfect. And I'm sorry I interrupted you. Continue, please.
Well, I was just going to talk a little bit about the program. I don't think we've done that previously. Coach put this program together. I get this question a lot. Is it like going to the seminars? And no, it's not. He specifically puts this together, the drills, the flow of the curriculum, the information to develop instructors. That's one of the things he wanted to do, is be able to focus the program directly on those guys and getting them ready to get to the rank of coach. It's a common question, so I thought I'd throw that out there too. All right, guess who we have on today?
Who do we have?
Guru Rick Faye.
Damn, Rick Faye. Rick
Faye
was Erik Paulson and Greg Nelson's instructor.
Yes, and he's got some really good stories to tell about that too. So it's going to be fun. He is a storyteller, so lots of good information. He's even going to get into some of the cool stuff he's been doing around the school to help his school grow. So it's going to be a good time.
Looking forward to it.
See, Guru Rick is the founder of the Minnesota Colleague Group in Minneapolis. He is a senior, full instructor under Guru Dan Inosanto in Jeet Kune Do and the Filipino martial arts. He is a level 5 Mafalindo Salat instructor. He is the regional director for the Thai Boxing Association of the USA. And he is a representative instructor under Sensei Erik Paulson in CSW.
Hey, he's got coffee, Alan. Do you have your coffee?
Of course.
Cheers.
We'll try it.
I don't do not coffee, so.
I love it. We're all cut from the same cloth.
Yeah, best friends right off the bat.
We did our, 2 times ago, we did our instructor conference over at the Kempocon in Germany. And they kept bringing me these little cups of coffee, the cute little girls at the desk, and and finally one of my guys way in the back looks at me and goes, "Keep it down." It was awesome. I was jacked, man. Yep. I was teaching at nearly Inosanto speed.
I was just going to say, that's what happens to Guru. They give him coffee at lunch, and it's like, oh, no, you gave him coffee. I can't keep up.
It's a strategy. There's a funny Erik Paulson story. He and Rick Young got Guru to do some videoing over in Edinburgh. And Guru had never had a Red Bull. So Erik stopped, and he gives him, I think it's 2 or 3 cans of Red Bull, and Guru is thirsty. So Dan drinks them down, and then Erik turns around to Rick and goes, "You're demoing."
Did they get that? Did they get that on tape?
They did, yes. It's pretty good, too. It's not bad.
Wow.
I don't know how he does it, but anyways, yeah.
That's awesome.
What can I answer for you guys, or what can I contribute to this? Sounds like history is where I come in here.
Guru, what would you like to promote? What do you have going on?
As far as events, I just got the email from Simo Pala that we do have Dan here twice again next year. So it's February 18 and 19 and September, 23, 24, whatever that weekend is. And he always shows up in September when I have an NFL game. So there you go.
All right.
I work for the Vikings, and I don't want to talk about it. 23, 24. My whole end of this deal is not, I sat and thought about it before I talked to you guys. My end of this deal is to train beginners and intermediates. And I'm sort of I'm an old style JKD guy. So I look at the CSW curriculum as a piece of what we do. And we look to the CSW for, information first. There's nobody that gives out more information than Erik Paulson. There just isn't. I mean, especially in the grappling realm, there's nobody that does better than he does. Oh, did I lose you guys? No.
I'm still here.
Okay. And so basically what we do with all of this is to train regular guys, regular people, men and women. One of my most popular classes is just a submission combination class. And so they don't have to wrestle. They don't have to do anything else. We do the old shoot wrestling combinations or whatever's out lately. And they just go through the combinations. They love it. Absolutely love it. And so it's average people that would never be at a CSW seminar, but through that avenue, I get them interested, get them on the mat and get them interested. And so really, I would say recreational would be a stretch, but it's still, we're not training fighters anymore. We're training, anybody that's on the mat is more interested in, well, certainly on the mat with me, unless they're in my jiu-jitsu program. If they're on the mat with me, they're more interested in that being a piece of their combat spectrum. So really, an interesting quote that I always remember is, through Guru Inosanto, we were always taught to be informed by the competitive arts, but not trapped there. Mm-hmm. So like I'm the regional director for the Thai Boxing Association here, but I don't think of my students as Thai boxing students. You know what I mean? Thai boxing is a piece of their conditioning, their power-based defensive work. All of that stuff is in there, attitude. And then I think the same of all of Erik's curriculum really has made it so that guys like me don't have to go out in the wrestling world, the jiu-jitsu world, the shoot wrestling world, the catch wrestling world. We don't have to go into that world and try to mix things in. It's already been done for us. I mean, you can literally throw in an Erik Paulson DVD and you've got curriculum for the next, especially if you can connect it to anything else. You've got curriculum for 6 months. It's the perspective that he brings and all of that stuff. Erik did what Dan told him to do. He said, make this art yours. And CSW is Erik Paulson's JKD. It's so obvious to me. He had to go that way. It's like Greg Nelson. Greg Nelson's doing what Greg Nelson has to do. He couldn't be anything else. And I really like what he's done that way. Anyways, I'll talk about these characters, but so that's how I see this whole thing. It's a piece. It gives the young guys a competitive outlet. So especially, I get a lot of people that come in that didn't have a team sport, didn't have anything in their background where they were competitive. And now all of a sudden they get a chance to compete against an athlete their own size, that kind of thing. And so I encourage that. I should say when I get competitors, I send them immediately to Greg. Mm-hmm. So I know it's not good for business. You're going to talk about business here in a minute, but I just can't. I'll tell them right out, I'm not going to do this justice. I could train you a bit and try to get you ready for a fight. Go up to Greg's. It's a 20-minute drive. So,
well, you mentioned those characters, Guru Greg and Sensei Erik, and I know these guys started with you. I'd love to hear something a little about that.
So Erik, Greg. I'll start with Greg because he was first. I didn't want students then. So it was Tim Tackett who forced me to have students because he met a couple guys from Minneapolis and said, you got to go train with Rick. Up until then, there was just a few of us training. It was the usual thing. We were in a garage and I didn't want to have anything to do with students. I was busy with myself. And, one of the guys was working with Greg making pizzas somewhere, I think. They were working at a restaurant. And he brings Greg down, and we didn't want him. And, you know, I always joke about I miss the days when we hit beginners. I really do miss the days when we hit beginners, because we beat that kid. Oh my God. We just teed off on him. And he's Greg. You know, he was great from the start. A lot of people don't know this. This might interest you. Greg Nelson, when he went to the university, that was that next year, he was offered a full ride scholarship in either gymnastics or wrestling. And they just said, take your pick your sport. That just doesn't happen.
Wow.
You know, that's athletes. When he was a senior, he won, I want to say it was the state championship match, but you'll have to ask him. He won one of his matches with a broken sternum. He broke his sternum early in the match. How many of us could continue through that?
Unbelievable.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Actually, it is totally believable when you say Greg Nelson with it.
Oh, toughest human being I've ever met.
Yeah, likewise. What year was this that he first came to you? Do you remember?
I think it was 1905 or 1906. Before the first big war. What would this have been? 80?
Early 80s? Yeah. Okay.
283? You'd have to ask him. My memory is not the best.
No, just trying to get some perspective on about those timelines, because that seems to be the period of time, those early 80s, when all this stuff sort of, like the 70s generation was like moving into this next batch. And it sounds like there was the guys who are really crushing it right now seem to be, that's sort of that period of time when they were all sort of doing stuff, starting.
Yeah. And I think we all had a lifestyle. Well, the people that were around me had a lifestyle where we could just do stuff. You know, I saw Guru after I met him. So I met Dan in 79 at the Degerberg Academy. And I think that was his first weekend seminar. He had done the Aspen Academy of Martial Arts. And my training partner came and says, you got to see this guy. And so I went and saw him. I was sold. I mean, I'm not bright, but I got that. So we followed him everywhere. And then people like Greg and all of those guys start coming along. It's I had some incredible talent just wander into the gyms. No credit of mine. They just wandered in. You've got Greg, Erik, obviously, Dave Leach, Kevin O'Brien. I mean, there were people all around me. I learned early on that I was not going to be the best athlete in the room. You know, I was going to have to struggle. One of the best promises I ever made myself was to never let Greg know I was tired. I followed. And that gym, boy, I'd walk up the stairs and my legs would be burning already. And I'd peek around the corner and I'd look up, I go, shit, he's here already. And, he just never quit. He never quit. Ask him about the times. Let me see, I stabbed him in the hand, shoved a dagger right through his hand, broke his nose in a demo. The funny one, I'll tell you a good Greg Nelson story. So we were going to go train, and I said, Greg, I heard on the radio that the Diamond Nationals is here. Let's go check out the karate tournament. So we're going, we got cut off old ratty t-shirts. Some, people used to wear those sweatpants with the stripes down the side. Adidas had sweatpants out then. And we're just going to train, right? So I said, let's go check out the karate tournament. So we start going, and I said, Greg, we're entering this damn thing. He said, what? I said, grab your sticks, get a dagger. So we go out there and we just roll, right? Well, we end up getting second place in the Diamond Nationals. And the comment was fantastic. The guy says, that is the best choreographed demonstration I have ever seen. I just looked at him and went, yes, it was.
Thank you.
So anyway, so that's a little bit with Greg. And then Erik, you asked about, so we're going to have to bring up the name Wendy because we didn't want Erik Paulson to stay. He was kind of cocky. He was a good taekwondo fighter, came from Bill Miller's school. And the thing he did right was he brought his girlfriend. And Wendy was a cutie. She was a little hottie. And the guys were heartless back then. They were just merciless. And so they said, yeah, he can stay as long as he brings his sister. I said, well, it's not his sister, it's his girlfriend. No, it's his sister. And But he stayed for a while, and then he got the JKD bug. He really kind of got into it. And the only wrestling we were doing back then was Saturday mornings, I want to say, or maybe Wednesday night and Saturday morning, because a lot of people don't know this. Wrestling is listed in the JKD curriculum, but it's listed under conditioning. And so what Bruce was doing with it was we had some finishing holds. That's where Sifo Hartzell really took off. But there was a real conditioning ethic, right? So a couple days a week you had to wrestle just for conditioning. Mm-hmm. And so of course I have Greg there, so I'm, you know how that went. And so Erik would show up for the wrestling days, and then he would show up for the sparring days and that kind of thing. But then his JKD interest brought him out to California. That's really where that went.
So he went right from your school out to California to Guru?
Yeah. He moved. He was actually Tackett's student first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he moved out to Redlands and or lived close to there. And then obviously once he got into the academy and he got in with his roommates, Chad, and I still haven't met these guys. Who's the other one? Chad Stahelski and Damon.
Damon Carl.
Yeah. And anyways, things started rolling from there. And then when he started his fight career, I was actually surprised. He said, I'm going to do these shoot wrestling fights. And I have a school in Japan. So I was going back and forth. And I said, really? You're a Japanese shooter? You're going to do that? Fine. So obviously he did pretty well.
Yeah. He did pretty good.
Yeah, not bad.
Not bad. So,
when did he meet Sensei Yuri? Was that right away? He just went out to the academy and he was there? Or
no, because Yuri wouldn't have been there yet.
Okay.
When Yuri got there. Yuri comes along, boy, would it be late 80s or early 90s is when Yuri comes along. And Erik's out there by now. He's already out there, I think. And when is that era? Because I've got some dynamite video. I've never actually met Yuri, but I've got dynamite video of Dan teaching the shoot flows. And it's fantastic. I happen to be, of course, it has to happen at my school where the one guy challenges Guru.
He's no. Oh, I got to hear that. What happened?
Oh, it's a simple thing. He's going to put a reverse Achilles on him, and the kid panics and starts squirming all over the floor. And of course, Guru sticks him right to the floor, and you just hear like that. And then by this time, the kid forgets to tap, so Guru's still laying it on, and you just hear screaming. And Paulo was mad at me for that. Somehow it ends up being my fault. But I really enjoyed that curriculum. That's one thing I wanted to hit on again, is that the idea, I think Erik's using the term chain grappling now. Is that?
Yes, chain wrestling.
I really think that's valid. That it's how we do things in Kali. In fact, I'll make an observation for you. So I met Sayama. I went over to the Tiger Gym and met Sayama. And that was an interesting day because I showed up in just jeans and boots, and I had my wife with me. Takashi's translating. I saw him warm up. I saw him do all these things. He's wrestling. And then he comes over, speaks to my Japanese friend. And my Japanese friend leans over to Takashi and he says, he thinks you're here to challenge him. I'm like, whoa, no. I just wanted to meet the guy. So anyways, from there, what I observed is they had great locks. They had wrestling ability. They were working hard, but they didn't have the flows that you see until Yuri shows up in America and meets Dan Inosanto.
Really?
And then all of a sudden, shoot wrestling has 10 flows with locks that it looks a lot like Kali. And I've never been told that influence is how it happened, but I just made the assumption that, gee, you come to the Inosanto Academy and now we've got logical flows of locks. I just think it was the influence. That's all.
That's awesome.
That would make total sense. You just have any conversation with Guru about anything, he's already breaking it down into the steps.
Isn't it amazing?
It's awesome. That's awesome. Wow. Those are some good tidbits, Alan. I never heard those.
Oh, yeah, that's fantastic.
Early ones.
Oh, now I'm in trouble. You can't say I said those things.
That's great. Wow.
So, Coach, I know you're having Guru Dan out in the new year. How often do you have him to the school?
We are one of the schools that gets him twice a year. And actually, I think we're the only school now that gets him twice a year, from what I've been told. And we, over the years, have just stuck to these dates where I get February and September. And, I've known Paula an awful long time. I knew Paula before she knew Dan. And I just really push to keep these dates. And it's cost me some money at times, but now we're making money on those seminars. And boy, what a joy. He seems to always show up right when I need to see him. And he's kind of like a father figure to me. I'll tell you a really funny father story. So first of all, I was the one arrogant enough to assume that I was going to be the JKD guy who made it. I was always going to be in shape. I would never get a divorce. I was the one, life was not going to affect me. It just wasn't. Well, of course, I'm getting a divorce, right? So here I've got to build up to tell Guru that I'm getting a divorce. Worst day of my life. I'm thinking, oh my God. And he looks at me, and I don't know what he's going to say, right? And he looks at me and goes, Rick, you could be in love with one woman and not in love with another. You could be in love with one woman and kind of in love with another. You could, and I'm thinking, you're giving me Sinawali variables about my life. It was just the most beautiful moment between us. We're like, all the tension went out. It was just perfect. Just absolutely perfect.
That's awesome.
Not a bad Guru impression either, by the way.
Lots of practice.
Speaking of Guru impressions, ask Erik the next time you see him. So one of the last times that Erik came up as an assistant, Erik had talked about the hammer. He said he's using the hammer more in his fights. And Guru turns around. He goes, Rick, I taught you that. And he starts demoing on both Erik and I. And he's doing different types of hammers from different types of positions. And then he stands up and walks off to teach. And both Erik and I look at each other and go, holy shit, what was that? And too bad it's not on video because no one, you can't repeat that. But it was unbelievable 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes of just Guru going, because you always think you discover something, right? And then he gives you 50 variables on what you just discovered.
The humbler.
Okay, so
the humbler.
I got to give you 2 more really good Erik stories.
Keep them coming.
This is great.
You're going to love me for this. So I go to the hotel, and I got so many good ones. Okay, so I'll tell you this one first. So I go to the hotel, and Guru's sitting. Okay, so I'm looking at you, Alan, and I see Guru sitting in the chair, and I walk in, and, oh, Guru, it's nice to see you. So Erik suplexes me on the bed. So it just gets me from behind, boom, up I go. Next thing I'm seeing is the ceiling. So I grab the bedpost, and I'm pulling myself out of this thing, and I carry a weapon all the time. I'm a collie guy, right? So I had this expandable baton. So I whip the baton out and I go like that, and that Guru's just in the back going, no, Rick, oh my God. Anyways, we stopped. And you can ask Erik about us wrestling on the baggage carousel.
What?
That was good.
Well, I don't doubt any of these.
Every time you tell one, people go, oh yeah, that's him.
Oh yeah.
So, we're checking into the hotel one day, and he and Dan are standing there, and they've mistakenly given him one room with one king bed. And that's when Guru would stay in a room with his assistant. And so I said to the girl, we have to have a room with 2 queen beds, and can you do this? And she's changing it. And Erik just very subtly leans over and puts his arm around Guru and says, we're not a couple anymore. And this poor girl is just red in the face. She can't figure out how to type. She's just not a smile, not a nothing. Just perfect.
He is the best deadpan in the business.
Anyways, there you go.
That's awesome.
I will tell you one thing I do want to get worked in here a couple of times, though, is just how proud I am of not only Erik, but all the guys. But I mean, when I look at what he's done, now even business-wise, before his physical accomplishments were amazing and the fight accomplishments, but now just the world over, his influence and his, he's taken, between he and Greg, they've taken the sport of MMA and made it legitimate. The UFC is the organization and all of this stuff, that's fine. But they really took it and made it. You look at just the sport itself, everything from transitions between, kicks and punches and takedowns and all of that stuff, the whole transition game to just the variety of submissions. You look back, UFC guys, they didn't have that kind of variety at all. And no, I'm just really proud of what they've done. I just, Erik is, he's an amazing character. And you know what it is? I think it's the fact that he's also such an amazing human being, because people pick up that he cares, number one. He's got a religious bent and he's not afraid to talk about it. He may occasionally see ghosts everywhere. Yeah, I know. I really, it's just such an amazing thing to watch. And I just want to sit and applaud and go, you go, take over the world. Awesome.
Yeah, we love it too. We see him all the time, and still, wow, he still can amaze you, even if you see him all the time. It's he is this other thing. Greg's right there too, though. Both of them. That's why it's so amazing when we get lucky enough when they're both in the same room together, because they're like brothers anyway, and they play off of each other. And Greg is technical in a little bit different way, and Erik is more rock star, channeling the genius from somewhere. It's just, and the two of them together, it's just virtually unbeatable. I just love, I love both of them. I love watching what they do. And it's good to hear somebody who knew them in the early days when they first got
the
started.
Embarrassing days.
Well, I have a question about the early days. Erik Paulson told me once that you and Greg Nelson were training. I don't know if it was the first school or where it was, but Erik was like the little kid banging on the door and really wanted to come into that back room and train, and somebody shut the door in his face and wouldn't let him. He was pretty pissed about that. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Well, when you talk to Greg, he's going to blame me, but today I'm going to blame Greg. How's that? No, we didn't. I'll tell you, one of the things I miss now, and I'm going to ask you guys about your bodies and how you're holding up in a minute, but one of the things I miss as, all this arthritis and whatever sets in is just the contact. And Greg and I fairly regularly had, what would be now called a full contact session. We just called it training. It was all about, the JKD groups used the word functionalization. And it was all about functionalization, functional in the gym, functional on the street. And, these were groups that brought their mouth guards to bars and stuff. This was the deal, right? And so that was, if I remember right, that was a session like that. And we were just going to draw some blood by ourselves, and that was it. And I think Greg went and slammed the door on him. He's getting the blame today. So if he blames me, then he's wrong.
Well, that would make sense that Erik Paulson would want to get into that room then. That totally makes sense. I didn't hear the part about the full contact going on.
Yeah. Well, Eric's always liked contact. So I worry about him. So, this thing that we do to our brains is not so good. So one of my current avenues of research is, it started with just concussive effects, having concussions and all that. And now I've really gone into the area of neuroplasticity and the whole idea of brain injury and long-term effect, all of that stuff. And there's another colleague guy out there doing it. Do you know who Paul McCarthy is?
Is he the one who did the TED Talk?
Yep.
That was an excellent talk.
Wasn't it great? I thought he said in 3 minutes what it takes me 3.5 hours a seminar to say. And, the science really is coming in now about neuroplasticity and the effect that Kali can have. It's funny. I don't know how much of this you can see, but I have a son with a mental illness, and that's part of so his therapist is standing behind her desk, stepping back and forth. And she says, he needs to have something where he uses his left foot in his right hand and his right foot in his left hand. And she's going like this. And I just looked over at my wife and said, honey, I got this.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
fun to me. But no, we're really right on the edge of people. Obviously my interest is to make up for the damage that's been done. All you guys have taken a lot of shots to the head, and some of us have killed a few brain cells the traditional way by drowning them. So this Kali will really help. It will really help. I try to make sure that all of my students are at least 1 foot in the Kali area, just because it's something as you guys get. How old are you guys? Do you mind me asking?
I'm 49.
49.
47.
47. Wow.
Well, it's fun.
You feel good?
We're all broken up like everybody else. We're trying.
I definitely remember my sins on a daily basis, but
Or look at our faces. It's obvious.
40s are pretty good. My 40s were really good. But, you know, what you got to do is, you know, Guru's big about this train smart thing. And you got to start making up for some of the things you've done to yourself. And the other part that I'm interested in is you're also going to have to start making some choices about the things you can do and the things you can't do. And I told our jiu-jitsu coach, with my knees, I can't do so much of what they're doing now involves weaving your legs into places that my legs aren't going to go. And so you have to adjust a game. You have to adjust if you can even play the game, you know, and then adjust what you can do. But the great thing about what we're involved in is there's so much of it that you'll find something you can do.
True.
You know, there's some parts of this. Like we took in the JKD program, I took the pummeling and put it in place of Chizana. We don't, Chiza's way later in our program, if we teach it at all. Because pummeling is kind of the current standard for sensitivity, you know, rather than all that sort of classical stuff that you can learn later as a historical lesson, you know. So if you go into my JKD class, you won't see them doing Chisai. You see what looks like a pummeling session, and it is. I give them some different terms. Throw a Chinese term at it, it's fine. It's JKD.
So in your curriculum, how many levels do you have? Do you have a blended curriculum, it sounds like?
I have two ways you can do it. We have my phase curriculum, so it's phase 1 through 6. Phase 1 through 4 is written down. It's an actual curriculum. Phase 5 is an independent study, and phase 6 is taking on a project where you use the art to do something positive with it.
Oh.
And so that's the phase program. And then we have 5 areas. So we have a Kali program, Panantukan or Filipino boxing program, JKD program, the Thai boxing program, and a grappling program. And in the grappling program is where the CSW exists. We make them do the student levels and that kind of thing. But to be honest, the jiu-jitsu guys are kind of taking that over. And I want to get some talent in there on the CSW side, because I heard just the other day from the jiu-jitsu guy, he says, "You'll never put something like that on me."
Okay.
And I'm just praying. I wish I was 20 years younger. You know, you want to look at them, and that's the kind of statement you want to prove wrong. You know.
Back into the phase curriculum, the self-study. What does that look like?
Most people will find an area of the martial arts that they're really interested in, and then I just encourage them to go there. And again, it's probably not a very wise business decision. So when we talk about business, that's not my best deal. But as an individual development, and also I'll tell you something about it, it's interesting. As an instructor, you have to be very secure. You have to park your insecurities off to the side. Because what I would look at you, so I'm looking at Alan and I would say, okay, I want you to go to the boxing gym. Come back in 6 months. Something like that. And then you pray that they come back in 6 months. That's, or whatever it is, you know, whatever area of the art they want to go into.
The other thing you mentioned earlier on in our conversation is in your grappling workouts or your grappling classes, you have you do the lock flows or chain wrestling, as we call it now, right. To where they're not required to actually roll with resistance. They're doing sequences of submissions and positions.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on what that class looks like?
Yeah, you know, it came out of an idea to introduce people to the mat work. And, you know, these are people who normally would never get on the mat. And, or if they are on the mat, they're in a CLOT program or something like that, where, you know, they don't have that ability or opportunity, I guess, to roll with somebody. And so I said, well, we'll take we started with the 10 original shoot combinations. And to be honest, they didn't get through them all, but that's okay. And then we just do breakouts. We just do little breakouts. You know, they'll have a far arm series, or they do wrestle a little bit. They'll resist just a little bit, but I'll give them a position and I'll say, okay, now the arm's likely to go 3 different ways here. You know, I want you to follow this guy as he's trying to escape and see if you can stick something on him. And I think of it as an entry level. It also is more of a mixed gender class. So the women come into that class. It's a bit conditioning because I pick a thing at the end. We'll pick triangles or something like that. And I'll say, like for a while we had 50, 50, 50. They had to do 50 arm locks, 50 triangles, 50 pop-up arm bars. And we just do a conditioning like that, you know. So they like the conditioning. They like the workout.
I like that.
That's good.
Yeah. They hated me after a while, but it was good. Yeah. I remember the one guy who was asking, he says, well, do we do abs in the class? And I said, no. Now do your 50-50. And he's like, oh my God.
You did a lot more than abs, buddy.
Amen. We had another guy ask about the medicine ball, so I taught knee mount for 2 hours.
You still want that?
Yeah, we're good.
That reminds me, I tried to wrestle with Erik once in Pittsburgh. And he did knee on belly for 3 minutes. I couldn't get him off of me. It was the most humiliating and humbling feeling ever. I literally was a ragdoll. I was really trying.
Yeah.
And he was laughing and just spinning around and I just couldn't get him off. He was surfing me. I couldn't get him off of me.
Isn't that amazing?
Until his knee dislocated, like he let me get into something, and then his knee dislocated, and he goes, all right, hold on. And I put my foot on his leg and grabbed his lower leg and pulled it, and it popped back in. And he goes, okay, let's go. The round's not over. Are you kidding me? Your knee just dislocated. Unbelievable. Yeah, but he stuck his knee on my stomach, and I couldn't get him off of me. No one's ever
Isn't that amazing?
Tore me up that bad.
That's one position you should be able to change.
Yeah, nothing.
That's a testament. That's a good story. That's wow.
Just making it for that 3 minutes is pretty impressive.
He would let it up long enough so I could breathe a little bit and then do something else to me. It was just really. I thought I was doing okay until he got on me. Forget it. It's that
there are levels and there are levels.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah, it's okay. All right, I'm not even gonna try now. I'm just gonna do my best here and just take my whooping.
Well, I got a good whooping story. Ask Erik about the day he broke my ribs. And then so we used to do the 1 hour workout, right? 1 hour, exactly 1 hour. So it's 20 minutes of sparring, 20 minutes of rolling, 20 minutes of rolling with the punching. Right? Sounds easy. It's not. And he tagged my ribs early on in the kickboxing. And I tried to keep going. Finally, I said no. And he looks at me and goes, hey, how about we just roll then? I said, Erik, my ribs are broken. So I quit. I just said no.
What did he get you with?
He thinks like that.
What did he get you with?
I was disappointed in myself that day because he kicked the inside of my lead leg a lot. And I think of myself as a person who's careful about where I place my lead leg. And then it was just a basic, he dug in and hit me with a body shot. And I also think of myself as a person who keeps my elbows in. And obviously not. So I got proven wrong on two scores there. So.
I'm going to give you a little credit on that. Maybe not proven wrong. It's just he's a Jedi. He just finds those spots.
It's a good way to put it.
I don't know how he does it. But, yeah, whatever. So there. Extraordinary talent, that's for sure.
No kidding. So let's get into a little bit of the business structure and stuff, Alan. And then I know we're getting short on time. You had are you okay on time right now, Rick?
Yeah, I got a few more minutes, so yeah.
Okay, so let's drop into some of the business stuff.
As far as school operations, something that you may have changed or adjusted at the school that business-wise or getting new students made a big difference that you saw at your school?
Boy, recently, I'll tell you, we have changed so much and grown so much. We're up now, but it's way over a third. I think it's 40%, something like that. But basically, I hired a new business manager. Do you guys know who Diana Rathborn is? Do you guys?
Absolutely,
yeah.
Okay. Of course.
So Diana was nice enough to help me out for years, and she's always been one of my best friends, and she helped me for years. And we did what we could, but business is not my deal. So I hired a young guy who's actually a business-minded person. So that's one. And basically, we focused on the facility. Finally finished everything, made it clean. We've got 2 big matted areas. I'm lucky enough to have a pretty big school. It's 10,000 square feet in there, so wow. I can do things with it. And so the focus on business procedures, everything from check-in to making sure that their auto withdrawal is correct, all of that stuff. And then the facility being clean, completed. And then the last part is a focus on my instructors to make sure and me too, to make sure I'm focused on the students. Because I think a lot of us focus on either the curriculum, we focus on ourselves and how good our demonstrations are and whatever else, or the worst one is when you're focused on your own training while you're teaching. And so we really cleaned up a lot of that. And like I said, the growth is, this is inside of a year. And what else have I done? I've just recently started to travel again, which is interesting. I think I mentioned that I have my stepson has a mental illness and I needed to be here. And it's great to be able to be gone and come back. And I think things run better when I'm gone. Sometimes I think they want me to leave,
I hear that a lot too here.
You sound like Alan. Yeah.
I mean, it's wonderful to come back and everybody's happy. They're glad they made progress. It's just awesome. And so it's opening for me to go and see some old friends that, like I'm going to be in Germany next week, and I started going to Germany in 84, 85. Nice. So, I've been through the reunification, the wall coming down, the euro, everything. It's actually, my traveling has helped form my politics. Because, I look at England. I went to England the first time with Sivu Hartzell in 83.
That's incredible.
And the changes I've seen, I can really predict where this country is headed based on what I've seen in the other countries. Spain, the same way. Spain put in a lot of the policies that some of our previous administration has tried to do and these other things. And I'm not here to argue politics with you guys, but I can see what's coming because I've seen it in other countries. When I started going to Chile, they were only, a year or two off of the dictator. Pinochet was only out of power for a short time. And what that kind of formation of government does to a country is horrendous. And so anyways, I just had a chance to see a lot of that. So now that I'm traveling again, I get to go revisit these places and see little kids that I was bouncing on my lap have grown up and had their own kids. And, it's a fun thing.
That's when it hits home, when the kids have had kids.
Bigger than you now.
Yeah. How did that happen? I don't know. But it's a great community. And, in a lot of these places, by the way, I either follow or precede Erik. So we're sort of on the road, just going like this, and so I still catch up with the stories, and I hear, what's nice now is I hear a lot of Tanya Paulson stories.
Oh, she's awesome.
Isn't she? She is so good for him. I just
she's
couldn't
good
find
for all of us
that says Erik any more than that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. She is, the whole thing just fell into place when Tanya showed up.
That's the truth.
Yeah, I could see that. And I don't know which star he preyed on or which lottery he won, but I hope the roofie never wears off. How's that?
She keeps us all in line.
She does. Alan calls her the Punisher.
If her sight ever comes back, he's out of here. So.
She's teaching a kickboxing class at CSW now. She's got 20 people in there now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Isn't that great? Gosh, I remember when she was just starting. God, that's, yeah.
Yes.
Well, she's a pretty good athlete too, so.
Oh, no doubt.
That doesn't surprise me.
She's got that farm girl grip. She grabbed me by the neck last time I was out there. I was like, damn, she's got a man grip.
We have a lady at the gym like that too. I use her to demo quite often, and I can't disarm her. So, you have to hurt them to disarm them. You're prying on the damn knife, and you're like this. She's a weightlifter girl,
Oh man. Well, so for your school setup, do you guys run like monthly testing, quarterly testing? Or how do you guys run your testing procedures?
We're just going to monthly now. It's been bi-monthly. And we set it up so not all of those programs obviously are tested on the same day. So generally my phase program, phase 1 and 2 tests, and then 1 or 2 of the other arts will test that same evening. So you'll have a phase test and then a collie test, or a phase test and a Thai boxing test, something like that. And it promotes, sort of they inter-promote, one promotes the other. So the people in the phase class see, maybe I should be going to the Thai boxing class, or vice versa. And it seems to be working. I'll tell you, I was against testing for years. And, I'm an old JKD guy. It's about a lifestyle. It's about the Bruce Lee and Dan Inosanto movement and promoting martial arts and philosophy and all this stuff. And I just missed it. I missed the boat in so many ways because I stuck to that. And it really came home to me. One of my guys said, Rick, these tests for some of these people are the only big accomplishment they've had in their life for many years. They may not have been on a team. They may not have had even graduated, from any kind of school. You don't know. And all of a sudden they get a test and they pass. And it's like an achievement. This is a big deal to them.
Well, how long is one of your tests typically? Is it half hour, an hour?
It's about an hour.
And what's that look like? Is it like a technical portion, and then maybe a contested portion? What's one of those look like?
Yes and yes. So there's a technical portion first. Let's say that they're going to do in the Thai boxing test. The only really contested portion of the Thai boxing is the plum.
Okay.
And so we'll do some of that. And I occasionally spot test, but most of the time they have to do their whole sheet plus the conditioning at the end. And if we get short on time, and if I know these are regular students, I see you in class all the time, I'll look at them and I'll say, I don't really need to see you hit your focusment combinations tonight, because I just saw it yesterday. And that's just to cut time. But most of the time, I get that question quite often, which is a funny question to me. They'll come with their sheet and they'll say, now which part of this do I need to know? Yes. That's why we print the sheet, moron. Anyways, but yeah, I don't know if they think they can get away with, shortening it or whatever, but they're just, you have to know it all. Otherwise, don't test. And I'm an easy tester too. I'm pretty easy. I will, if they get close, let's say that I want a different angle on a triangle lock or something like that. What I'll do is I'll write on the back of the certificate, you need 500 repetitions of this. As soon as you do that, make a check mark that the certificate's valid. That's, and I just have them, that way you don't have to fail them, because I don't like to fail people. I have a couple times, but it's really uncomfortable for me personally to fail somebody. And it's easy to just write on the back of the certificate, do this amount of repetition. And when you check it off, then it's valid.
That's a great idea. That's a nice touch.
So,
now, to get to the point where in a phase or a level that they're going to test, what's the typical time? Is it 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, a year?
Yeah, it's still too long. You could do your level. So phase 1 is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. We have 3 phase 1 levels. You could do it in 6 months, but they don't. It probably takes them close to a year to get through it. And we're thinking of cutting that up smaller now, so that, because really, I think it would benefit student retention wise to get that testing done a little early, get them on a path of completion of goals and that kind of thing. So we're going to relook at that.
That's awesome, Guru Rick. So I have another question. Class breakdowns. So it's one of my favorite subjects because our affiliates ask that one a lot. Even my own guys ask that a lot. I typically will, I have a certain structure to our workouts. Most schools do. But I like to print them out. Like, what each workout is. Don Guerin takes it even further. Like in the curriculum, when we set it up, he takes it to where that's in the book. Like all the classes are laid out in a book for every single phase, every level. It's the system, and he hands it out. So I know that can be modified, and that's the whole point, is to take the idea of that and JKD it and put it into your own system. How do you break down your classes? What does, let's say your JKD class, if it's an hour class, what's that hour breakdown to?
Yeah, so JKD class is an hour class. Let's start with my phase class, because that's the most, phase 1 is my most popular class.
Okay.
Excuse me. So we generally warm up with weaponry. So they'll have a double stick or single stick section. They occasionally do some empty hand work, locks and controls, things like that. There's a focusment section and a tie pad section, and it's all timed out. So when you talk about, what I do for my instructors is I have time. When I teach, by the way, I just teach by feel. So I've been doing it for so long. I can turn around. If you have to start your tie pad section at 6:31, I'll turn around at 6:29 and 30 seconds, and it's right on. I just do it by feel.
Nice.
So for them, I time it out. So I say, okay, you've got 12 minutes for your weaponry. they change over, they get their stuff out. You're going to need, 2.5 minutes for them to get their stuff on and whatever. And I map out the time for them. And then the curriculum is revolving. So they would know it by the TiPad combination that they're teaching. But really, there's a set of curriculum that go with each section, and it revolves. So that way, it doesn't matter where a beginner jumps in; they're going to get the same thing sooner or later. Mm. And it's an 1.5 hour class. We've discussed over and over again how to fit phase 1 into an hour, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. If we're going to get any kind of weaponry, I can't do it. Now, the other classes I can get into an hour. So JKD is easy. You've got a footwork section, which might be as simple as a warm-up, jump rope, knife sparring, something like that, or it might be formal footwork. And then they have entry practice. There's some sort of trapping section. If we're going to go on the mat with it, then we'll do that then. And then they do focusment combinations. And the one thing we have changed, and it's working really well now, is I make sure that each instructor acknowledges that this 1 hour is their chance to work out in the day. And what that came out of is I had a few instructors who would, oh, good Lord, they'd speak and just wax on about their own philosophy forever. And then they would rob people of a workout. And it's like you go to a gym and all the equipment's busy. And then you don't get your workout. So I really focus on getting them, they have to get 28 to 31 minutes of good cardio, they're rolling. And whether that's on a TiPad, a focus mitt, if it's on the mat, they're doing things, the difference between us and the jiu-jitsu group right before us, a lot of times we're doing the same locks. We just don't talk about it as long. Good Lord. You guys just they can't tie their belt without discussing it for 20 minutes, So, they got to grab the collar and shift and adjust. And I don't know what just throw the guy over and put an arm lock on him, will you? I mean, it's, so, I don't let them talk the students' workout away anymore. What else? We're very good on time now. At one time, there was actually a phrase out there, and they didn't think I know it, but they called it RFT. It was Rick Faye time. And it meant they knew I was going to start late and end late. And I started being on time on the backside first. I end on time to the minute every time. And then I worked it over to the front side where I will give them 3 to 4 minutes lead time. Let's say the class starts at 6 o'clock. So you can start at sort of 3 or 4 after, and that's okay. People are still milling around and whatever. But I don't let the instructors fudge the time anymore. They've got to end. A lot of times people have rides coming, or they told the wife they were going to be at home at a certain time. That end time is super important.
That's good to keep in mind. It reminds me of not quite the same thing, but the Paulson time warp. You got Rick Faye time, and then you have the Paulson time warp. A little bit different.
Times, yep. Seminar's over at 4, and we're still rolling at 6.
He could just train all day. But I that reminds me of a seminar teaching technique, which we touched on this a little bit when we had Rick Young on. There's a difference between seminar teaching and class teaching. A lot of the times, people get overwhelmed when, let's say, Guru Dan or Erik Paulson will throw 9 million things at you in 2 days. And we have to remind, especially the newer guys, that this is seminar teaching. They're information dumping. They're throwing a lot of things at you. This isn't your regular class. Right. The other thing I've seen, especially rookie guys who aren't quite as experienced at giving seminars, you touched on it, the talking thing. Like Guru is a master at not doing that. Like he runs it like a gym practice. He'll show you the thing, and then it's go. It's 3 minutes, and then switch over 3 minutes, and there's a cadence to it, and that's awesome. And the best guys, the one, and you don't even realize it's going on. It just feels awesome. The workout's great. Well, you're not sitting there getting cold. Like he keeps you going. You just described it with your classes, so that's really cool. I would imagine your seminars feel the same way. Is that how you run them, your seminars? Or?
I've got a couple good analogies. First of all, it's great you had Ricky on. There's another unbelievable talent. And, he's a guy I go a long way back with. And I remember telling Rick, after he had said to me, I want all of my art to be functional on the street. And I looked at him and I said, Rick, that's really sad. You should have goals way higher than that. Because who on the streets of Edinburgh could deal with Rick Young? I mean, give me a break. You know, it's a violent city, but there's nobody up there that's going to deal with Rick Young. And no, he's absolutely one of my favorite people. He would be in that category with Erik and Greg. And boy,
awesome.
He's done a lot of good for martial arts, man. Anyways, yeah, so seminars, I have an analogy that I give. And what I do on the information front is I throw the host instructor in it. And I just say, look, I'm the manure truck. He's the spreader, which makes us both full of shit, right? And it's a fun little moment for the seminar, but I say, look, my job here is to show you, give you a tour, right? We're taking a tour of the art, and we're going to bounce back and forth. And my current interest in the art is what I call seamless. And seamless just means I realized it when I watched Dan Inosanto move. And I looked at what he was doing, and I watched all the different things, and I've seen all these pieces sort of come together over the years. And I watched and I thought, oh my God, it's seamless. It's actually, there's no gaps anymore. There's no, when we talk about transition phase, every transition is piece to the body. I mean, there's no big gaps like there used to be. And so I try to point out the seamless part as well as the sort of cultural part, because really to make this art, we had a lot of cultures that had to come together. And, it's not just Filipino culture. It's not just Japanese culture. It's not just Chinese culture. It's not all this. You had all these cultures had to have their influence. And that's why a lot of arts don't like Dan Inosanto or the JKD family, because they come in and they lose their identity. And the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys are going to be the next ones. They're going to be upset with us because it will lose their identity. It will just become, it's like CSW. If you use the term shoot wrestling for people, they don't know what it is anymore. You say, oh, this is Shuto. What is that? Is that CSW? I said, well, no, actually, it's the other way around. CSW is Shuto, kind of. But you see, but it loses its identity, and it's supposed to. It's supposed to. I mean, look at the CLOT. I asked because the current guy, Mal, comes to our school, and he's just the latest CLOT guy. And he had the class there, and I asked them, who is Eddie Joffrey? Who is John DeJong? Who are these guys? Do you even know who Paul Herman is? Paul Dutoit. And they're gone. They don't know. They're just, it's the latest guy, always coming in the latest guy. But when I do seminars, I try to point out the connections between everything. That's really where my interest is. And you're not going to, these days on a seminar, the crowd is so educated. You're not going to show them anything new necessarily. The art's out there. You can give them training advice. You can set up training environments. And then you can show them the connections. That's really where it's at, because everybody's, especially overseas, overseas getting intimidating now because they're such good fighters. I mean, it really is that they're very educated and talented, so, but I'll tell you what makes it fun is you can set up now where you get a series or a sequence to a certain point and then say, no, you make the follow-up. And they've all got follow-ups that they can do. Some of them will go into a submission base. Some of them go into a more practical or military type base, and you can just let them make their follow-up.
Oh, nice.
That's cool.
Now, for note-taking advice for seminars, we had LaVon Martin on for the last podcast.
Awesome.
Not out yet. Will be coming out shortly.
Diana's down there today, so.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I saw that on Facebook.
Yeah, those two together scare me. I don't know. Those two individually scare me, but together,
we're going to have to tell Yvonne not to throw her over a chair or whatever they did last time. I don't know.
Throw a couple of guns in the mix. Those were interesting stories.
Yeah, those two get out of hand.
At least before Diana got into guns.
But note-taking, another one of my favorite things it's just like a hobby to always dissect that and how to capture the information and break it down as efficiently as possible. We talked about, I like to, when I watch, especially Guru, he teaches with a story structure. There's always a beginning, a middle, and an end. Always. And then somewhere in there's one or two variables. And I try to sort of prepare. If somebody's going to a seminar with me, it's like, okay, just observe. This is going to get you a little bit ahead of the game while we're going in, because you're going to be so overwhelmed in about 30 seconds when you watch him get going. And here's the mistake, is you're going to get caught up in either staring at your notepad and trying to write everything down, or you're just going to stare at him and not remember a thing. You got to develop your shorthand, but if you figure out a couple of chunks to where you can get down the thing that didn't change and then the other thing that didn't change, maybe the beginning and the end didn't change, quick note, and then the middle, there's your 6 things. That's what he wants for the next 3 minutes. Or the end part is the 6 things, or something like that. Just sort of share like a grid, or do you have any tips like that? That's one that I've just sort of observed. I didn't make it up. It's already there, like all the rest of it.
That's genius. I do a lot of same as. So he'll have, like you say, a beginning, and I'll go same as, and I'll just reference whatever it is, some good thing pattern or whatever it is. And then same as, and that's a real quick way to remember that part. And then you're right, then what the variables were. And then when you ask the question about the variables, what the variables changed to. Because he has 6 variables, but then somebody asks a question, and Joel screws up the feed. And so he gets 4 variables. And I'll tell you a funny Joel story. This was one of the best. He gets off the airplane here, and he's looking at me. He goes, "Oh, Rick, wrecked my back, just ruined it. Oh." He says, "Can you demo?" And so a couple of really interesting things happen. I get up in front of Guru, and he goes, "Oh, Rick, are you sure you can still do this?" I'm like, "Oh, fine." So I get through the weekend, and it's fantastic, and I love that man more than I can say. But we get through the weekend, we go to the airport, and Joel grabs his bag, stands up, and says, "Thanks."
Oh, no, he didn't. No, he didn't.
We can knock. That's all. No, but I wouldn't pass up a chance to have Guru do things to you. So we have a policy here that's interesting. Nobody gets to touch Dan. Nobody touches Dan, and it's something I developed years ago. But so if they have a question, they can come up, and either Joel or I will let them ask the question on us, but I don't let anybody touch that guy. And so I think anytime you get his hands on you, it's a big thing.
I got really lucky. I think I mentioned it last time, Alan. I got really lucky in Pennsylvania last month. I went and asked him something. He did a Wong. You would know. Is this a Wong Jern? I asked this last time. I never really got my answer.
You're gonna have to hold it up a little higher.
Here, it was
that is Wong.
Okay, so
it's all Wong.
Stick turn is straight. Long Jern is here. Now Jern is curved. Yes.
Okay. See, I got the right 2 guys here. Okay. So, Guru went through, he actually was doing a little bit of Chisao, up front. I haven't seen him do that in a long time. So he's doing a little bit of Chisao. He's flowing through, and then he threw Wong Jern out there, and I was like, oh, okay. I haven't seen that in a long time. So I'm going, okay. So he did that and caught that moment, and then he went through some other things, and then transitioned to a bunch of other things. So
you were doing lops out counters, and he walked over, and he went like that. Yeah, okay.
Well, I go over to him, and I said, Guru, I want to straighten out my terminology, make sure I have this right. And you were doing this, and then you went into, is this a Wong Jern? Well, he just grabs me and pulls me aside, and he goes, you could do this, and then he starts doing Chisao with me. I'm like,
awesome.
Holy crap. And we're doing Chisao. I'm like, oh man. So then we start flowing. He starts going into transitions, and then I'm doing the best I can. And one time he's like, oh, that's really good. You went into that. And then we're going, and then it was a couple of minutes, but it was probably 10 seconds, but it felt like a couple of minutes. Yeah. But and then he lost me, and he just went into so many other routes that I kept up with him for a couple of seconds, and he was like, that's really good. I never really got my Wong Jern question answered, but he went into so much other stuff, and I went over like a deer in the headlights to Joe, my training partner, Joe Cargato. And Joe was just staring at me. I didn't even know that was on my bucket list, and I just checked it off. It was like, holy crap. Yeah. I never in my life thought I was going to stand in front of Dan Inosanto and do Chisao. That was awesome. So anyway, sorry, that's my little moment I had to share with you. It was so great.
I have one that's similar. It's just leaping into my mind. I've been to one Thai camp, because two of the men in my life who could order me to do something like that ordered me to do it. Dan and Try. And so I had to give some sort of speech and act like I deserved to be promoted. And but the highlight of Thai camp for me was an hour with Sifu in the parking lot doing close range stick work. And I turned around and I looked at Daniel Lenero's there, and he and Diana are standing there. I turned around, looked at Daniel and Diana, and I went, I'm never washing these again. It was just, you know, short of the Danish supermodel twins, that's about as good as it gets in my life. So.
That's a wrap.
Anyways.
Oh, so next time Erik Paulson's going to be on here. We're gonna bring Erik on here. I'm seeing Alan's been the producer and finding all of you guys and the great guests for us. But I'm seeing this super show evolving here. We have to have Rick Faye, Erik Paulson, Greg Nelson.
Oh yeah.
What do you think, Rick Young? What do you think we can coordinate that, Alan? Get like six of them on.
I think I can try to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be
one very serious interview.
That would be the ultimate. They'd all be fighting each other to get in.
We'd just have to sit and listen. Wouldn't have to ask any questions.
It'd be the easiest interview ever. We won't have to say anything. That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on with us today. We've known you on the fringes because we don't, see you on a regular basis. I don't even think I've met you in person. I've talked to you on the phone a couple of times. But I really, honestly appreciate you giving us your time today and coming on with us.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for everything you do, and for being out there, being a mentor, and everything you do for the industry and the arts. It's greatly appreciated.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. You guys have a great day.
This podcast is brought to you by Erik Paulson's Combat Submission Wrestling Professional Coaches Association. We are striving to be one of the top organizations in the world for professional martial arts instructor training and business development in the martial arts industry. For more information, you can contact me, Alan Baker, at cswatlanta@gmail.com or through the main website at erikpaulson.com.